So, yesterday, hopefully you didn't miss it, I did a video talking about a dev post on the forums introducing a new feature coming to the game called the Legendary Armory. That was pretty interesting. 2 minutes after I posted the video, the devs announced something else on the forums, and this time to do with the Super Adventure Festival for the year 2020. And, well, it's pretty big because for the first time in years and years and years, they're talking about adding new worlds to the box. Like, this is the first time since, what, 2013 or 14? I've genuinely felt the Super Adventure Box is going to get World 3 and is going to get World 4. Maybe not this year, but I really do think it will happen now. So this is really cool. I'm going to run you guys through the dev's statement, and they're actually asking for community feedback on certain Super Adventure Box related topics too. So at the end of the video, I'll give you guys a link. You can go over there and we can see what feedback they're looking for. But this is pretty badass, so let's run through. There's also a bit of information about separating it from April Fool's Day. I'll let the devs speak for themselves and read what they said over on the forums. In the meantime, the footage in the background will be me in the Super Adventure Box. That's me playing Tribulation Mode. It's a video series people have been able to watch on Patreon, but won't be coming to YouTube for a couple more weeks. So think of this as a bit of a preview. Don't get the wrong impression. It does not mean the Super Adventure Box is live right now. I recorded this stuff like 11 months ago. Anyway, so they say, hey everyone, it's that time of year when spring is in the air and our minds turn to the timeless seasonal pursuit of collecting baubles. There are some timing changes to the Super Adventure Festival this year that we don't want to take you by surprise, so let's get to it. So first of all, I like that they're actually announcing this. I can imagine many other years they would make the changes they're about to mention and not say anything and send people like me off on a rabbit hole of speculation that we really shouldn't be doing. Anyway, so here's what they say. The Super Adventure Festival will activate in mid-April this year, instead of overlapping with April 1st. The Super Adventure Box originally started as an April Fool's Day joke, but it's expanded into a real festival over time. Since we usually do a little something for April Fool's Day anyway, having that minor holiday overlapping with the Super Adventure Festival caused a yearly headache to ship both events simultaneously or temporarily turned off. This year we're going to give the Super Adventure Festival some space from the 1st to let it and April Fool's stand independently. So I'll just step in here and say I think that's a really good move. I know this sounds very minor and silly, but to me, as a more old school Guild Wars fan, April Fools was always a big moment every year. The devs did really cool stuff like swapping the gender of your character or making you stickmen or the size of minis and minis the size of people that would get people talking and interested. And in Guild Wars 2, that's never really been a thing because the Super Adventure Box takes all the stage and all the light, and in fact some years for Guild Wars 2 they actually haven't done an April Fool's thing whatsoever. I've never really liked that. They have both been opportunities to get the community engaged and talking and having fun, and the overlap hasn't been good. So I'm really happy that they did this. I wouldn't have thought to do it, but now that they're saying that's what they're going with, I think it's a really good idea, and I'm actually a little sad that it's taken them till 2020 to enact this change. It means going forwards with Guild Wars, we now get to look forward to a fun little April Fool's gimmick, and we get to look forward to the Super Adventure Box. You've also got to think about and the devs don't talk about this, but the timing of the festivals in general. In the start of the year is super cluttered with Guild Wars festivals. Winter's Day is still heavy right at the start of the year, straight into the Lunar New Year, and then Super Adventure Box comes, I feel like, very quickly after that. Then there's a bit of a break for the summer stuff. So this just spaces them out a little bit better. And so yeah, I'll leave my SAB videos till mid-April when the actual things come out, and we can figure out what they'll do with April Fool's itself pretty goddamn shortly. So then they go on to talk about the idea of a new world, and this is the really interesting bit that I'm sure is why you clicked the video and is the bit that really grabbed my attention, because the idea of new worlds is not something they've really engaged in a real discussion about. They've just been very evasive and said, oh, you know, it's a maybe, but they've never been committal. In fact, the last comment we had on it was years and years and years ago, and here they just blatantly say, so the festival is moving to halfway through the month, and they go on to say, this doesn't mean a new world is happening this year. There will be new secrets to find in the box, a new meta achievement reward, and a new set of weapons to collect, a different twist on the original set rather than just doing the usual new colour. But the doors to World 3 and 4 will remain shut. However, we haven't given up on a larger addition to the Super Adventure Box, and even if it isn't this year or the next, we'll be chipping away at it behind the scenes. You may even see some new assets in the box this year from outside the worlds you know, ... So there's a few things to unpack here, and they're actually working on something. I think many of us diehards kind of knew this anyway. If you watch, say, that shaman's Twitter and see the various data mines he sometimes grabs a few times over the most recent 2-3 years, there have been weird Super Adventure Box assets suddenly appearing in the client that clearly have nothing to do with Worlds 1 and 2. So I think at least 1 or 2 people at the studio have been chipping away, as they say, for a long time, and will continue to. But it's that outward confirmation that they're really going for it that I take a lot of heart from. It even sounds like now, this year, even if we don't get a full world, there will be something explicit in-game that hints at the next world. These new assets, whatever they might be. So they're talking about a new meta achievement. I'm not sure exactly what they'll talk about. Last year was pretty cool with the new upgrades, if you could remember, that we got. And the race mechanic in the hub was something I very much appreciated when the POF Super Adventure Box rolled round. But what space do they have for another new meta now? I guess I'm not sure. Hopefully they don't keep just adding upgrades without real content to support them, because I don't think last year's update was that seamless. You'll see more of that in my video series that's coming up soon. As for the new weapon set, of course, we have seen with the other festivals, they're kind of taking established weapons in the game and then, tweaking them and doing new variations. So, like, the Winter's Day stuff was Silvaria weapons, but now looks much more mistletoe-y and wintry. The most recent set with the Lunar New Year bombed, and they remade them to actually look really, really good. And I fully expect the new Super Adventure Box stuff we'll get this year will be along similar lines, which is actually pretty good to me. I don't like that the SAB is giving us colors of weapons for Worlds 3 and 4 without actually giving us Worlds 3 and 4 themselves. That's always felt kind of naff to me, and if anything, was closing the door on the idea of getting those further worlds. It's just another thing that speaks to the MMO gamer mindset that the reward is more interesting than the content itself, and is something that I forever want to rebel against. So yeah, hopefully we get something new and distinct, and that will be quite good. As for the meta achievement, well, that will be to do with these new secrets. I'm thinking something along the lines of the furniture shops that we got, which again, I very much enjoyed. Maybe it has to do with the upgrades we got last year that now you can use to access new secret places. Like last year's update will string into this year's update. Something along those lines. So then they do close the post out with a call for some feedback. I figured I'd open the floor since I'm doing a video about it anyway. They say, finally, if you have a few minutes, I'd like to collect a little feedback about the Super Adventure Festival. Feel free to answer the following questions to help us make the game and the game within the game better than ever. So the first question they ask is, what's your favorite level in the Super Adventure Box? Is there anything in particular that sets it above the rest for you? I'm sure lots of you guys have your own ideas on this. And it's kind of a fun question because every Super Adventure Box level is so distinctly themed around a certain idea. You know, you've got the first level is kind of your Green Hill zone, and then you've got a very clear spooky foresty area in the second level, and then you've got a very clear swamp and so on. For me, it's definitely the fourth zone, the rushing rapids, everything from the general aesthetic to the length of the level to the difficulty curve in it, the mechanics that you experience. I like the push-pull of the currents as you actually fall in the water. Obviously, on initial release, that level had some really wonky mechanics there where you just constantly get spammed with knockdowns if you're in the river, but now it feels really good. One thing that the original release did that was really awesome is those water sprouts that used to turn on and off. I'd love to see that come back in the SAB. That was one of my favorite things about that level. The raft section in the middle is brilliant. How can you not like that? The long bridge feels really distinct. All the hidden secrets were fantastic. Basically, every section of the level, whether you're in narrow canyons, trying to avoid frogs and jumping on all the little water sprouts and try to avoid actually landing in the water, or whether you're doing the frogger bit or the vertical frogger bit along the really, high waterfall, they're all just super well made. I'm likely predisposed to enjoying a summery, watery themed level at about this time of year, because I'm so sick of winter and I just want to see leaves on the trees and I want to be warm and I want to go splash around. But regardless of whether that's influencing me, I still think that this is the best level that they've done for SAB, and I'd like to see more similar stuff as we went forward, maybe. But the thing is, I don't know why the devs are asking this question, because each level is its own theme. I kind of wouldn't want to see a duplicate of the rushing rapids, because, I want the new places we go to feel like their own distinct locations, and that shouldn't mean there's much overlap. If you guys, I mentioned Shaman earlier, if you guys never caught this, I have done a video about it before, but a little reminder for you, it has been mined in the past what the later levels were going to be themed about. or at least their titles. I can give them to you here. The next level is going to be the Sparkling Pools, which you guys will actually know we've had a little preview of in-game before. So you had the Sparkling Pools, then it was going to be an underwater level. It was literally just called Underwater. Then a level called The Mines. Then a level called The Collapsing Caverns. A level called The Graveyard. A level called The Gatehouse. A level called Laboratory. And then finally a level called Parapets, which presumably is like the rooftops of some big castle or something. So they all sound excellent and fun, but I'm not sure what there is that I enjoy about my favorite level that you could actually copy over into some of those later areas. They should all thrive and feel as distinct from one another as possible. That's all I'd really want, right? And then, yeah, maybe some of these mechanics, like the moving platforms and stuff, could be very cool. Anyway, their next question is, last year the Super Adventure Festival was the first festival to introduce a weekly vendor. What new items would you like to see on the weekly vendor? To be honest, I really don't have a clue with this. I'm not very inspired with many of the rewards in Guild Wars at the moment, and I'm not very interested in the weekly vendors. I think the main thing they can keep doing is the Guild Hall decorations, because they've been brilliant so far. What I'd especially like to see for a Guild Hall decoration is some kind of like really big piece that's quite intricate, has got a lot going on, just so that we can make our Guild Halls look as Super Adventure Boxy as possible. And then finally, they just say, what sort of new Super Adventure Festival content would you like to see in the future? It's fine to respond that I just want a new world, I only spend time on that, but there are other kinds of gameplay or mini games you'd enjoy in the meantime. I actually think there is a lot going on there. And we've already seen the Super Adventure Box did a bit of it. The race in the hub is something that really inspired me. I'd like to see more like almost competitive stuff in the Super Adventure Box, like racing against other people at once in the levels themselves could be really fun. One thing I've always liked the idea of in the past was a Super Adventure Box raid style content, right, where you actually get a lot of players tackling something very difficult in the Super Adventure Box, like maybe retune one of the big bosses like the Storm Wizard or the King Toad to actually feel more challenging. That could be cool, like a jumping puzzle oriented, you know, raid caliber piece of content. And if that sounds really weird and stupid, well, I think that the new feature strike missions could work. Basically, a Super Adventure Box strike mission would be an amazing combo, wouldn't it? The idea of a strike mission that's only available while a certain festival is up seems strange, but I actually imagine a lot of the festivals could do something like that. And another thing I've always wanted to see is like a Super Adventure Box Guild Hall, like just a full-on Guild Hall that we can unlock during the festival and then year-wide enter it with our guildies. I think that would be extremely popular. But maybe the stuff I'm saying is too big. So, yeah, maybe just smaller things to actually reuse the levels we can already play, but in interesting ways. Like reverse courses where you actually start at the cage and your quest is actually to get back to the beginning. If you look at the way they made the Tribulation mode, and just through the positioning of the new spikes and obstacles, completely change your route through the level, that can be done in lots of different ways if they just wanted to go for it, but it might be too much effort again. So anyway, that's what I think. If you guys are inspired by any of this, in the description there is a link to this forum thread. Feel free to let the devs know what you want to see with the SAB, and I thought that was a pretty nice little update that they've given us here today about the potential for a new world. So thanks guys, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you again for the stuff they've just added in the next video. Take it easy, see you next time.